Welcome, everybody, to episode 3 of the Female Perspective from MXP Magazine. I'm your host, Jackie Riess, joined by my buddy, Lindsey Bradley, tonight. Lindsey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. I mean, I think both of us have been better, but we are
Yeah,
here to provide a podcast tonight.
yeah, always do.
So, San Diego Supercross is what we're going to cover tonight. In addition to kind of a lot of Canadian motocross news, some silly season announcements, things like that. But starting off with Supercross, the track, it was just wild to me. Like that set of whoops, we've seen gnarly whoops all weekend, but or all season long. But seriously, these whoops this weekend were incredible. They were long, they were tall, they were hard as a rock. They didn't really break down. Like it was definitely the deciding factor. And I think like the track itself was the biggest competition for a lot of riders out there this weekend. What were your thoughts on the track, Lindsey?
Yeah, I think so too. I think that the whoops, not only the whoops, but the track challenged a lot of people. I think it looked really almost pebbly on top, so it was a little bit slick in spots. Saw a few riders go down in that corner across from the start where it looked pretty slick there too. And yeah, I mean, going back to the whoops, they were long, challenging, and whoever could make it through them the best was kind of going to make it through the night, really, because like you said, they weren't breaking down or anything. So it definitely challenged a lot of riders for sure.
Do you think that's like the purpose? Like, should they build something so challenging that it's literally just a feat to make it through the obstacle?
I mean, it definitely helps the riders that are good in the whoops. Like that's definitely an advantage to those guys that are good. And like we talked about last week, I think any of the taller riders would have a little bit of an advantage through there. That being said, though, I don't think that that's their feat by any means. But I mean, it definitely was a challenging track. But would I like to see more of that? Absolutely, because I think it makes for really good racing.
Yeah, definitely. And we saw that corner after the whoops was just, and even the corner before the whoops, like everything surrounding this section of the track was just providing entertainment and great racing. So, I mean, I think as a racer, as a fan more so, they're exciting to watch. But as a racer, like I'm not interested.
Yeah, no thanks. Yeah, I agree.
Another interesting thing that I noticed was just that like most of the time when they build that big supercross triple, it's in a place where like if you double single, it's super disadvantageous. But this weekend, like you were able, if you just doubled the triple, you were able to double again. And so it like when we saw in the first opening laps of races, like guys just missed the triple, like it wasn't really the end of the world, in my opinion.
No, yeah, it almost didn't look slower to double double.
Yeah.
And it was almost a little bit more cautious in that before and after too, before corner and after corner. Being track being so slick anyways, for sure. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. Well, quite the challenge. I really don't know how these guys do it. Like every week, I'm just impressed. Like to the average viewer, I feel like it's just, oh, like they're just racing, they're just doing it, they're supposed to do all the jumps, things like that. But like, I could never do that. Like
No,
it's just
absolutely not.
incredible.
Yeah, I feel like racing gets better and better each week too, which is nice. Gives us something to talk about for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that continues, right? Like most of the time seasons kind of settle down, but having a season like we saw in MXGP last year, like where the drama and the action just kept ramping up, like I hope that that's what we see in Supercross this year.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I agree.
So, moving into our Canadian highlights, quite a few like I mentioned this week. Cole Thompson really impressed me a lot this week. He did awesome. Like
Absolutely.
as we were predicting, like just one step at a time, building, building, building. Like that heat race, I don't know what happened, but we were actually
No.
texting and like we're like, oh man, he's literally at the bottom of the board. Like, is he gonna make it back? Is he gonna have to go to the LCQ? And he made it.
Yeah.
Like that last corner pass was awesome.
He had to be persistent, but he made it work on Surratt. And I don't know, I think we were chatting about this too, but Canadian viewers didn't have any sound for the first, like we didn't have any qualifying sound or anything. Like we could hear their interviews and stuff after the race, but we couldn't hear any of the commentating. So that in itself too, you kind of just had to watch the board to see kind of where people are at, especially with when cameras went off of Thompson and onto the leaders and whatever. So and you can't hear anything else that's going on. So that made it tough. But that last corner pass was impressive by Thompson for sure. I was very impressed, and he came from the back too, from what I understand.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened to him, but I literally just remember seeing his name in very last place, and I was like,
I
oh,
think
geez.
I think the first or the one of the first times I checked, he was like 17th, and I'm like, oh
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
that sucks.
But
LCQ, but here we are.
yeah, but like we were talking about the whoops, like he seems pretty confident in the whoops. Like that's a big game changer, especially in that lower half of the 250 class. Like that's the determining factor for I think a lot of racers like taking that next step in their racing. So I think that was super advantageous for Cole.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's always been kind of a good whoops guy, and having that American Supercross experience, he's brought that back to the Canadian stuff too, and it's very well known that he's obviously a good Supercross rider, and yeah, I think you're right 100%. It was very advantageous with him going through the whoops like that.
And he carried it into the main event. Like got a good
Yeah.
start, was in the top 10 the entire race, finished ninth. Like honestly, like if I was him, I would be stoked. Like it's great steps forward for him, and each weekend he's just doing better and better.
Yeah, without a doubt, he keeps building and getting better every week. So I think with consistency and confidence, it's gonna be a top five here shortly. I could see for sure. I
What's
hope,
going
anyways.
what's going on in the background, Lindsay?
We have some house rentals going on. I was trying to drown it out and maybe talk a little bit longer, but yeah, no, it didn't work. I guess just ignore it.
That's all right.
We cut it out.
Not quite.
Just kidding.
Uh,
Anyway,
so
carry on.
it, now I'm thrown off, so I'm just gonna move on.
Yeah,
Uh,
carry on.
Riker Weinkoff from
Oh yeah,
Saskatchewan, racing in KTM Junior Supercross Challenge, finished eighth. Awesome job
yeah,
for him.
yeah. And being from Saskatchewan too, it's not exactly close to go to California, so it's nice to see those Canadians that are head down there. There was a couple at round one in Anaheim, and they didn't have it at round two, but they had it back at round three, and it was nice to see another Canadian name in there for sure. I did see him go down though, and I think they might have been out for practice during an intermission. I did see him go down, but he had like a pretty quick lap time for just a little 50 guy. I was impressed.
Absolutely.
It's awesome.
Yeah, those E50s are pretty cool too.
They are neat, yeah, for sure. Except for I did notice though when he went down, they have a tether on, so
Yeah,
they couldn't get his tether hooked back up, and
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
all
like
good.
snowmobile.
It is, yeah, yeah.
I wonder what setting they put it on, right? Because they have five settings. I'm sure they put it on five,
I
I
would
think.
think for yeah, I mean, well, I don't know. It's like a full-on Supercross track for those kids, so you never know. They might have it tamed down just so they don't whiskey and loop out.
Jump the berm.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we had mentioned last week in our private conversation, Jess Pettis had a crash last week.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, at that time we weren't exactly sure what had happened to him, but turns out broken collarbone. Man, I hope he's back in time.
Me too. That's a bummer, big time. Being Canadian, obviously, we were all cheering for him, and he cannot catch a break. Like it's been the last like 3 years in a row that he's gotten hurt. So super unfortunate for him. I'm hoping to see him back ready for the 250 East Coast, anyways, and show those American boys what's up. I know he can do it.
Yeah, he seems like he's been working so hard every single year, and it's just such a
Yeah,
bummer that like something else happens and something else
yeah,
sets him back. So I hope that, just a collarbone in air quotes, like it's still a broken bone, but quote just a collarbone is not
yeah,
too terrible for him to come back from.
yeah. I think it'll be a little bit easier of a process than he has in the past. Like I think the last two times it's been a knee injury, and the first time obviously he underwent surgery, and I think maybe the second time he even did too. So obviously his ACL, MCL, meniscus, or whatever he had torn in there, it's a pretty long recovery in comparison to a broken collarbone, because we don't even know like how bad the collarbone was. It could just be a small break, and he could be 3 or 4 weeks and be back on the bike. So that would be awesome to see for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I've broken a few myself. How are you?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Kids just fall out of bed and break them, like
And
like no
that's just
biggie.
it. Yeah, it's only 7 foot-pounds to break a collarbone, I think. So it's not much force at all. Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
easy to do when you think about it.
yeah. Like I'm thinking about my snow bike. Like the lowest thing I have to torque on that is like 18 foot-pounds. So
Yep.
yeah, way less than
Yeah,
that to break your collarbone. That's interesting.
absolutely. Yeah,
Lindsay with
I
the
think
knowledge.
it's 7 foot-pounds, but don't quote me on that. I think
Yeah,
it is, but
but not very
something
much,
like that.
honestly.
No, no.
So, our last piece of Canadian news, Thor Pro Circuit Cowie team announced that Tanner Ward will be mounting the 450 and Dylan Rempel on the 250. I actually had no idea. I'd never heard Dylan's name before, but it turns out he's like a teenage kid just moving up from the Super Mini. I don't know. What do you know, Lindsay?
Yeah, Dylan, he's a local Ontario kid. He was very impressive last year on a Super Mini. I don't think he lost a moto, and if he did, it was very few at that. Obviously a very dominant Super Mini rider, and Cowie actually had him under the tent on a built 85 and a built Super Mini last year. So I think they built that relationship, and as far as I know, Christian Huber really liked the kid, so why not carry him into the pro class for sure. He's a likable kid, and he knows what he's doing on a dirt bike. So I didn't really expect anything less, to be honest with you. I knew that they were looking for a 450 guy, and I was super pumped that Tanner got on that ride for sure. He deserves it. Well deserving kid for sure.
Yeah, I hope this is home for him now. Like I feel like he's bounced around a little bit. Like I hope he can really settle down, and he's definitely someone that a company can build a brand around, I guess. Like, just like he's a good guy. Like if he's going to be solid and be on that team for a long time, like he could be like a staple name as a Kawasaki rider.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And he's one of the most deserving kids I've ever met. So I've known Tanner a long time, and he's a great guy for sure.
Yeah, I do think it's bold though. Like bringing up a kid from Super Mini to 250 and just saying, go ahead, kid. Like, I think that's kind of a bold decision, but if he's been that dominant, hopefully it turns out kind of like Ryder McNabb.
Yeah, I mean, he has been dominant. And like you said, like Ryder was 14, moving up to big bikes, 15 last year, I believe. And sorry, 16 the end of last year. So maybe a year older than Dylan at this time. But yeah, I think going back to that, though, I think Dylan's going to learn a lot from Tanner because Tanner kind of has that veteran status almost now. And being the 450 guy, I think Dylan will learn a lot from Tanner. And I think he'll adapt pretty quickly and do well for sure.
Yeah. Going back to Supercross, I think we pretty much covered all the Canadian happenings for the past week, but it's very exciting, and I hope to see more teams revealed soon.
Yeah, for sure.
250 West. It's the Christian Craig show again. Like, even though Mosman was the winner, I still feel like everything is always about Christian Craig. Like, of course, he was, is the red plate holder and had a catastrophe in the first turn, but again, Christian Craig show.
I mean, well deserved too. I think he was my favorite by far yet again. He rode extremely well in that main event. I was very impressed that he was down on the ground in the first turn and charged his way back up to third. So yeah, that was a very impressive ride for Christian Craig.
Yeah, no kidding. So that first turn crash, captured Craig, Shimoda, Blos, quite a few other guys. And I was thinking, like, whose fault is it? But then I was like, well, I don't know. Does fault really matter? Is fault really the word that you would use in a first turn crash? What do you think?
And you know what? I don't know if anyone's at fault when that sort of thing happens because it happens and it's bound to happen at some point in time. They're all going so fast and all going for the start. So, I mean, it's bound to happen.
Yeah.
There's how many of them piling into this tiny little corner? Like, it is bound to happen. I mean, it sucks that it happened to Shimoda and Craig because they're two of the top guys and then they have to work from the back. But again, with the whole Craig rode really well, but I can second Shimoda riding very well too. He came back to fifth, I think. But yeah, that was a crazy heat for sure. Or main.
Yeah, like honestly, I was kind of surprised though that the pileup happened like on the inside. Like normally people just like push outward and then like things start snowballing towards the outside of the corner. Like
Right.
I was kind of surprised like they just pinched off and just stopped. Like
I
it
think I
seemed
saw
odd.
someone run into Craig and he kind of fell over into someone else.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where it started. But again, like it happens. They just hit and it happens so fast. It takes out pretty well everyone that's behind them, really,
Yeah.
at that point. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And honestly, just like his ability to regain composure, like we had talked about the past couple weeks, like it's hard to get back in the rhythm of going and being smooth of all things, like after you
Yeah.
have something like that happen, or even just like a simple mistake in a corner or something, like that takes a lot of skill to calm your mind and just be able to plow through the field.
Yeah. And I think it comes back to how bad he wants that title now. I think that that's really showing too. And he wants it. And that's all there is to it, really. He wants it so bad that he's like, I'm going to do anything that I can and everything that I can to get through the pack.
Yeah, and like we had talked about at the beginning, the whoops never hurt him.
No,
Like the
never.
whoops are amazing for him and very advantageous section for him. Like he was literally just blowing by these people like they were standing still.
Left, right, and center. Every single lap,
Like
he was blowing by people. It amazes me every time he goes through there. I mean, from what I understand, he's a taller rider. And going back to last week's conversation about being tall or short, I think definitely taller riders have that advantage. But he is just like a phenomenal whoops guy for sure. One
yeah,
of the best I've seen in a long time.
yeah. Which is scary when he gets to the 450, I feel like. Like
Yeah,
like he's already proven
yeah,
to be amazing on the 450 outdoors. Like he just belongs there, and so I think if he can clinch this 250 championship, like it'll be good, good stepping stone for moving forward into the 450 class.
yeah, absolutely.
So also in that main, something that really stood out to me was the Lawrence Mosiman battle, like
Yeah,
going at it, and you could see Hunter just waiting to make that pass, calculating like when am I going to make it, and the lappers really got the better of him in the whoop section when he was finally going in to make that pass on Mosiman, and he makes a mistake in the whoops and literally like face plants into Mosiman's rear wheel, but is like okay, like that could have been so much worse in my opinion.
that, yeah, that could have been terrible. But it shows the heart and determination that that kid has.
Yeah.
He got up and still went for it. So for sure, yeah, that could have been really bad though. 100%.
Like coming off the track, like looking at Mosiman's bike on TV, like the the rear fender stickers are like peeled up, and I'm like, what?
From his head.
From his head, like there goes
Yeah,
your visor, like
yeah,
incredible, like for him to come back from that and still be on the podium is again being able to gain that composure is pretty special skill to have.
yeah. Agreed. 100%.
Was there anyone else that stood out to you, impressed you in the 250 class?
Again, I think Shimoda. He went down turn one and he still worked his way back up to fifth, and he was pretty quiet with it too. Like he didn't make too many aggressive passes, but he did what he needed to do and he got back up to fifth. Shimoda really impressed me, along with Craig, obviously, and Hunter Lawrence.
Yeah, I will
Yeah,
second the Shimoda. Like we didn't see anything about him. Like he didn't get any camera time, nothing. Like
no,
he did get up in front of Christian. Christian did pass him, but they were both moving through the field. Like to go from last to fifth is, or almost last to fifth is pretty impressive, and especially when you do it quietly. Like I think
yeah,
that is almost more rewarding sometimes than having the cameras on you and having it be a big show. Like being able to just put your
absolutely.
head down and do your thing, I think is really rewarding for a rider.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%.
So 450 class. Some unfortunate injuries to thin out the field a bit. AC out, Savachi out. Savachi with that pretty major knee injury. AC sounds like he's just going to take the time to get healthy, to come
Yeah,
back and be 100%.
he had that. I think it was a grade 3 or 4 AC separation, which is in your shoulder, like the week before Anaheim. So I know he's really been struggling with that, and it's been showing too. Like he's been able to get good starts and ride the first few laps with those top guys, and then starts fading. But you and I both know what it's like. We both have bum shoulders, and it is the worst trying to hang on when you literally cannot hang on anymore because
Yeah,
your shoulders just, yeah, it's awful. So I
yeah,
feel for him big time, and it sucks big time.
yeah. No kidding. I my big thing is dislocations, and luckily
Yeah,
I've kind of done quite a bit of therapy to help remedy that. But at one point, like my shoulder was so loose that I landed a jump and it just subluxed, like literally came out, went right back in. Like
yeah,
it's like so unpredictable, and it's like, oh man, again. Like I feel like
yep,
you're either kind of a shoulder or a knee injury person. Like you're kind of one or the other. There aren't too many people that have both, and so it's just like, ugh, again. And I can totally feel for AC. Like it's not even the same injury. It's literally just, ugh, another shoulder injury. Like I don't want to do this anymore.
yeah. From the time I was 14 till the time I was 20, my dad was putting my shoulder in
Yeah.
like 4 times, 5 times a year,
And
and
I
it
feel like
sucked.
I feel like that's something that's like especially unique to girls that race. Like pretty much every girl I know has dislocated their shoulder, but not necessarily every single guy. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
I agree, but I don't know what it is. Like I don't know what the separation there is between male and female. I
Yeah.
really don't. I mean, in theory, males have kind of the same bone stature, and so do females. So it might be something to do with that. But and it might we might go back to the whole 7 foot-pounds to break your collarbone. It might be something similar too with a shoulder dislocation. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor, unfortunately.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
You could be my doctor. I'd let you be my doctor.
I have a fair share of medical training, but no doctor here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what we came to the conclusion in my therapy was that it wasn't necessarily that my shoulders were weak and that they needed to be strengthened. It was the fact that I had so many knots in my shoulders that the muscles weren't working properly, which is
Right.
which is pretty wild, right? Like if you have the ability, you have all this strength to keep your shoulder in place, but you can't actually utilize it. Like that might be something to do with it too, just not having loose muscles that, even if it is, a little bit weaker compared to the male, like it's still enough for me. So
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. Of course, every injury is unique, but it's just an interesting pattern that I've kind of noticed over the years.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't know why it happens. It just does.
Yeah, someone smarter than us needs to do a study on motocross shoulder
Medical,
injuries in
yeah,
women.
medical research. Let's go.
Yeah. So something that stood out to me in the heats was Aaron Plessinger. He came from last to ninth, and I just have this image in my mind of him crossing the finish line, and he is just relieved. Like you
Yeah,
can't see his face, but you can see his body just relieved, and he's like, close call. Like it's
yeah.
amazing that he didn't have to go to the LCQ. Um, have you ever had a time when you just felt like, oh, thank goodness, like that's over racing?
Yes. I'm not gonna lie to you. Every time we go to Gopher Dunes for the national, I am the last moto of the last day. I'm like, thank God that's over.
Yeah,
And I really like Carrie and Dig. They are really good buddies to me, but I hate riding there, quite honestly.
yeah,
I don't know of any person that will be done after Gopher and be like, wow, that was a really fun weekend. Like it beats up your body so
yeah,
bad.
yeah,
I can't walk properly for like 3 or 4 days every time I ride that place.
yeah.
I don't know what it
Uh,
is about it, but
uh.
yeah.
When I was there, though, like the Saturday that we raced was like just this gnarly track, but the Sunday, the way that they had prepped it differently, it didn't look like that bad. It wasn't that deep. It wasn't so gnarly. Like I guess that they just know how to prep it for a national.
Yeah, see, and that's the thing too. Like if they leave it untouched, so for the Gopher National of 21 last year, they we had 3 days of nonstop riding, and two of those days, the 250 and 450 pros were out in qualifying in their first moto on Saturday, and then their second and third moto Sunday, with amateurs in between, and they didn't touch it for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
So by the Sunday in the afternoon, it was just beat, and
Mm-hmm.
we rode. I can't remember what day we. I think we rode the Sunday, honestly, and we rode between the motos. It was so whooped out gnarly. It was crazy. That's the craziest I'd ever rode it, and I think Triple Crown has a video posted of they like rode around the track on a four-wheeler after,
Yeah,
and the four-wheeler was getting stuck in places because that it was so whooped out and so gnarly. I don't think a lot of people have seen that place like that before, but it was crazy.
yeah. And it was raining, wasn't it? Or it
It
had
was,
rained?
yeah.
Yeah.
It had rained, yeah. It was wet. The I remember doing a mud moto, the first moto, and then the second moto dried up a little bit, but it was still like the moisture was awesome in the track. It was really good. Um, and it kept the dust down, but they just didn't till it. They didn't do nothing to it. It was craziness.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, a learning curve for a lot of people too. And myself especially on a 125, I was getting buried.
Yeah. Bleh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, my shoulder came out there
Jeez.
last year at the national because I came out of a corner and high sided because I hit like a bump and
Mm-hmm.
it just hucked me down the hill the wrong way. And yeah, that was it.
Yikes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Connecting all these supercross things to things that actually happen, right? And I think like that
Yeah.
is our kind of my goal with part of this too is like just to make it relatable. Like, obviously, I'm not there, I can't give you this in-depth analysis about what so and so said, but like just relating racing to local racing or women in racing. Like, I think that that's kind of our purpose here, and it's pretty cool to, see that things still translate to your own life.
Yeah, it's just a different perspective is all really. And I think a lot of people have kind of, they don't really know it from our perspective,
Mhm.
from a women's perspective or from maybe an amateur perspective either. So I think covering that within the Supercross is good for everyone for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the 450 main,
Yep.
Sexton like just got out front, ran his race. I was pretty impressed by that.
Yep. Marv with a whole shot though.
Hmm.
He hasn't really been getting good starts all year. So I was very impressed that he was up front that early.
Yeah, yeah, and just the fact that like Sexton was able to make the pass, and then Tomac took advantage, and then the next person took advantage, and the next person took advantage. Like,
Yeah,
I think just those passes really threw Marv off his game.
I think
And,
so. Yeah.
like, we just saw him drop lap after lap, and I was actually very surprised to see that.
Yeah, me too. He's always had a good pass. Like obviously in the last few seasons, he's been a top runner. So I was very surprised to see that as well. But I think you're right. It's throwing him off his game when he's getting passed by Sexton, then Tomac, then Barsha, and Anderson, and all the guys are going by him, and he's like, "Well, this sucks."
Yeah, I know. And like at that point you almost feel helpless. Like what am I supposed to do? Like these guys are just
Yeah,
going past me.
you're like, "What am I doing wrong?" And what can I change to not make them pass me?
Yeah.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah. Someone going the opposite direction, Jason Anderson, like wow, I wish his bike would not have had an issue.
And that's just it too. He by far he was most impressive in the 450 class. He rode his heart out for sure, and I think seeing that, I think it really shows how much he wants a title. He's shown his speed now. I think he just needs consistency and starts all year, and he could be a title contender 100%. I see it in him for sure.
Mhm. I know, I do too, and good for him. Like showing that he can do it again and that he
Yep.
cares. Like I think there's a perception out there that he just didn't care, and I don't actually believe that. Like as a racer, you can just go out there and not care. Like that's just not the case. Like
And
you
and
always want to
that's
win.
yeah, and that's just it. He really showed some speed and consistency along with that training that's been happening in the gym for sure, and on the bike too.
Yeah, but very impressive for Jason Anderson. Like he has shown a lot of heart and shown that he does care, and it's it's impressive. Like he's probably the fastest guy. Like
I would
just
think.
unfortunate circumstances. Like and when
Yep.
they didn't happen, like he put it together and he won. So
Yeah. Yep.
I'm impressed for sure.
Yeah. Me too. 100%. I agree. I like that guy.
Yeah. Well, he just has this cool guy persona, but not like I'm gonna blow you off like I'm too cool for you, but like uh just everything he does is like fun and like
Yeah.
hip, right?
Yeah.
And just
Well, he's
cool.
got like the team fried thing too.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Hmm. And did you know that Team Fried is not about weed? Like,
No, yeah, I know.
yeah, it's just like I feel like that's not something that people know. It's actually just like fried, like tired from a long day of riding, not
Yeah,
actually like weed.
yeah, I know a lot of people would think that too, just
Yeah,
because of the overall persona of those guys too.
yeah.
Like you'd almost think that, but yeah, a lot of people think that. I did know that though. That was one thing I did know that it's
I
not.
I learned it recently, and so I was like, oh well, I feel stupid for a while now, but
Yeah,
oh well.
it'll happen.
Was there anyone else that impressed you?
Anderson was definitely the most impressive in the 450 class.
Hmm.
Barsha did have a solid ride after not a great start. He did have a pretty solid ride. I mean, obviously not his best ride, but he did have a pretty solid ride. And then Sexton was finally able to get that win, and I think he was pretty well deserved too.
Yeah.
He's been working hard, and
Yeah.
yeah, following that leadership of Kenny too. I think it's really helped him this year.
Yeah, the whole Barsha Bogo thing definitely did
That's
not
right.
make for his best ride,
No,
which made for quite a bit of controversy. And Bogle actually got disqualified, which I think was um,
yeah,
maybe honestly harsh. Like, especially when you don't penalize the person that started all of it, right? Like,
yeah.
you know,
I mean, getting put in that position, Barsha literally could not do anything except try not to fall, but how could you not fall
Yeah.
when you get hit that hard?
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I agree with you. I think it was a little bit harsh. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a hard situation for
Yeah.
sure. And
Yeah.
that's something that AMA deals with, and thank God it's not anyone else.
Yeah, well, I literally like some other things that we've been talking about. I don't want to be the person making the decision. Like, I
No,
do not want to
absolutely.
be in charge of that. I don't want like people being mad at me for, having to make that decision. Like, that's got to be difficult for the officials at the AMA to A, come to a conclusion on a penalty, and B, have to deliver it to the person.
Yeah,
Like,
I most definitely do not want to be that person.
or
But I
people,
still,
but yeah.
no, yeah, exactly. I just think Barsha rode pretty solid after that, kind of regrouped and kind of got his mojo back for sure.
Yeah. And going back to Sexton too, like we were real high on Sexton the past couple weeks. Like if he can put it together, if he can put it together, and he finally put it together,
Yep.
and had everything work in his favor. And Anderson's bike lost, had that issue before he was able to, maybe close the gap to Sexton. But like all of that is racing, and all of that is part of putting it together and making it stick. So well deserved. I was impressed by Sexton's composure too.
Yeah, it definitely happens. The Anderson thing, it definitely happens, and it sucks that it happened to him. But yeah, I was very impressed by Sexton and well deserved for sure.
And pretty quiet ride from Dylan Ferrandis for third. Like
Yeah,
I didn't really notice, but like good for him. I think
yeah,
that
that
might be what he needed.
yeah, like you said earlier, it's a quiet ride, but it's almost more rewarding when it's quiet. The camera's not on you. It's kind of on the leader, on what's going on the track, like the Bogle Barsha situation. But yeah, I think it's well deserved for Ferrandis, and that's kind of what I think. Now that he's got that podium feeling, I think he's gonna keep pushing, 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 and he'll be up there more. I think anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, leaving the third round, there's 7 points between the top eight guys. Like
Yeah,
that
that's
is
craziness.
that is crazy to me. Like literally, those eight guys are still in it. They're still in the championship and could win. Like that parity is what you could ask for. Like all you could ever ask for. And so, who do you think from this weekend gained momentum going forward, and who maybe lost some momentum in the overall points chase?
You know what? I think Sexton again is going to gain momentum every single time because he's going to get better and better and better every week. He has that veterans experience. Watching Kenny, it's his teammate. I think he's going to learn from him and obviously learn from his mistakes. Being able to put that together every weekend, I think he's going to gain a lot of momentum. As for who lost it, obviously I don't know. I might have to go Anderson just because of a bike malfunction. I mean, it sucks. It happens, but he had such a high. He was at such a high, and now he's at almost a. You were at a low. He got back to third, but yeah, no, or sorry, not third. What was he? What am I
Anderson?
thinking here?
Uh,
Anderson,
I think he fell to eighth
because
or
he got
ninth.
back. He got back into third, then second, and then he fell back again to
Yeah,
ninth. Yeah,
yeah.
which sucks because you're on such a high, and then yeah,
Mhm.
it does suck for him. But I think I don't know. Had that not happened, he would have rode really well. Had he put the pressure on Sexton, I think that could have been a really good race too, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me Anderson's a bit more like neutral. Like he had so many good moments moving forward that the bad one kind of canceled it out. So like maybe
Yeah,
just net zero, it is what it is. Like he knows he has the speed. Like it's just things out of his control. People taking him out in the first round or bike malfunction in the third. Like I'd said before, like when nothing went wrong, he put it all together and he won. So I
yeah,
think, of course, not how you want to end the weekend, but I think like kind of neutral for Anderson.
yeah. I agree.
Ferrandis is my pick for gaining momentum. Like he needed that. He needed a podium, and like I think even just to like believe in yourself and believe that you belong to have a chance at the championship. Like obviously he dominated all last summer, but just
Yeah,
doing that in Supercross I think was kind of big for him.
yeah, absolutely. It and going back to that though, it's hard to pick someone that's losing momentum because they all have highs and they all have lows. And like you said, there's 8 or 7 points separating the top eight.
Yeah.
So it's hard to pick someone that's losing momentum because they're really they're all really riding well at the end of the day. So it's hard to pick
Maybe
that.
maybe Marv? Like that
I mean,
was
maybe, yeah.
like not necessarily based on his ability, but more so on his mental composure. I
Yeah.
don't know. Like
I mean,
just falling back that many places is not good for morale generally.
no, I mean, it sucks big time. And like I've been injured before and I know exactly how that feels. You get a really good start and then you have people passing you. You're like, why are these people passing me? So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely a morale decreaser
Yeah.
for sure. Not an increaser. It's
Big
definitely a
ol'
decreaser.
big ol' thumbs down.
Yeah, no thanks. But yeah, no, I maybe he did lose a little bit of momentum. We'll have to see next weekend. I mean, I hope not because he was one of my favorites. But
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. We're back to Anaheim next weekend. Any
Yeah,
concluding thoughts for the series so far?
mm, nope, not really. You?
uh, I'm just excited to have racing back. Like the
I
off
mean,
season
yeah,
is so long, like and it's my personal off season too with snow biking and in between dirt biking and snow bike seasons, like for me I'm just doing nothing. So I'm happy to have a lot going on and a lot of racing happening.
yeah. I've just been working away. So it never changes.
Yeah.
Work away during the summer, work away during the winter.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. So Lindsay, thank you.
Yep.
I'll see you next week.
Thank you. See you next week.
And thanks everyone else for joining us. Again, we'll see you next week too. See ya.